Hi guys, Lindsay here with Storybook Family Farm. So I've been working steadily on getting the living room ceiling done, and this project has been one that has just been way more cumbersome than I had ever anticipated. And it really is frustrating because this past week we actually had to start using the wood burner, just so that way the house obviously stayed warm enough. And upon using the wood burner, all of the plaster work that I had done with the drywall mud to make it so that way all the seams were flat and even and symmetrical, which is really hard to do when you're working on a 100-plus-year-old house, everything cracked out. So there's big crack lines, basically the entire, I think it's 16-foot long lines that it's cracked the entire way. It started cracking when it started getting cold out, and we had to start using the mini split for heat. On the side of the living room that the mini split was on, that side cracked out first, and then the other night we had a fire going, and while the fire was going in the wood burner and such, I had just started falling back asleep, and I heard boom boom, scared the snot out of me. I heart palpitations, couldn't sleep for a couple hours afterwards, and it was bad. But what had happened was, what I had heard was the plaster cracking out. So that was very frustrating. It was one of those things where I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Because I've been working pretty much every single week, multiple days a week, on just skimming over and over and over again, trying to get it so then that way it's more flat, more even, so that way I could texture it without having to do anything extra fancy in there. Which, I've been kind of thinking about doing something fancy in the living room ceiling, like doing like a coffered ceiling or doing some sort of like decorative design sort of element, just because since it is an old house and I've tried to keep things like historically accurate in terms of like keeping things more plain, more boring, because it is an old farmhouse. And so that way it just fits the original part of the house that hasn't been tampered with too much. I didn't want to do anything really fancy and pizzazz giving, just so that way it didn't seem over the top in one room. But that's my backup plan. So while we were at Menards over the weekend, after borrowing my dad's truck, I'm really glad that the ceiling snapped out and cracked out when it did. So in that way, because I was planning on that next day after that had happened, I was actually planning on working on doing a whole bunch more skimming work to try to get it so that way it was like good to go. But so it is what it is. But so while we were at Menards, I actually picked up a whole bunch more trim boards so that way I can do some sort of elaborate design on the ceiling, just so then that way it hides the cracks. Because since we're going to continue to heat with wood, it's literally, if I fixed it, it would just keep doing it again and again and again, because wood is such a dry heat that my assumption is it just took all the moisture out and just snapped it. So very frustrated with that, but I think the coffered ceiling idea is actually going to look really neat. So what I'm going to do is put like a 6-inch wide board on the base of the ceiling, so I guess like that. And then on top of that, or below that, I'm going to do like a 4-inch wide board, and then I'm going to cut a strip and make it be like a 2-inch thing. So that way, looking at the ceiling from the ground, it's going to look almost like a V or like a pyramid type shape. I'm going to do that along all of the seams. So then that way, when the other seams crack out, it's never going to be noticed. It's never going to be a big deal. It's basically becoming a non-issue. Plus, it'll look really nice stylistically. It's just a heck of a lot more work to do to try to work on hanging that and doing all that. So it's been brutal. But yesterday I did work on getting the texture put on the ceiling, which this was the first time I've ever done that before. So I actually had to go to YouTube University to watch a few videos on how to do that, which it wasn't that hard, but it did actually cause me to have a significant amount of problems with my neck all day today. That's why I'm filming in the evening, because to be quite honest, I had to lay it back down multiple times today because of how jacked my neck was. For those of you that are new, I have a lot of issues with my joints. I also have rheumatoid arthritis. So anytime that I'm like looking up or staying in the same position for any length of time, I end up getting really sore, really uncomfortable. So that was yesterday's doing, was a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. But the other thing that I've been working on this week, oh, that's exciting. There's this maple tree right here that has a dead branch growing out of it, and there's a mushroom growing in there. There was never a mushroom there before. This is the first time. Last year there wasn't any either. But so the other thing that I worked on this week was there was a window that was broken when we bought the place. in the laundry room, which is in addition to the kitchen. I did get that the rest of the way sealed up, and we also got a game plan going with that, which I'll show you guys in a future video as to what I'm planning on doing there, because it is going to be probably a project that's going to be more extensive than I could even begin to explain now, because we're gonna just kind of conceal if there was ever a window there. So it's just trying to make more storage, more comfortable living space where we're at right now. So it's just sort of one of those difficult, cumbersome things. It's going to be a nice wintertime project for me to tinker with, because it's going to take forever to do, but it'll be nice when it's done. But so that's it for me today. I got to work on helping Tracy get the birds gathered up so that way they can go to bed soon. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess. That's the nice thing with doing an old house, if you remain flexible, is you can just sort of roll with the punches and just sort of create something that wasn't ever in your attention before, and just hopefully it'll turn out nice. So anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.